a wealthy Southern family ruled South Carolina's courts for nearly a century. But beneath the surface of their powerful legacy lurked lies, betrayal, and a trail of tragic deaths. A teenager lost her life in a deadly boat crash. A trusted housekeeper died under mysterious circumstances. Then, shockingly, a mother and son were found shot dead. And the man who claimed to have found them? Their own family patriarch, concealing secrets darker than anyone imagined. But do you know, how did the mighty Murdaugh legacy collapse into a nightmare of murder and deception? And what twisted truths lie behind the fall of a dynasty built on power and privilege? In today's video, we dive deep into the shocking saga that shook the South to its core. In February 2019, 19-year-old Mallory Beach was among a group of friends partying on a boat owned by the Murdaugh family. At the helm was Paul Murdaugh, intoxicated and belligerent, driving recklessly through the dark waters of Beaufort County. Moments later, the boat slammed into a bridge piling. Mallory was thrown overboard, her body missing for a week before being found downstream. Paul was charged with 3 felony counts of boating under the influence, but thanks to the Murdaugh name, his trial was endlessly delayed. While the community whispered and raged, Paul remained free, shielded by the very legal system his family had controlled for decades. But the boat crash wasn't the first death tied to the Murdaugh estate. In 2018, Gloria Satterfield, the family's longtime housekeeper and nanny, died after a mysterious fall at the Murdaugh home. Despite the unusual circumstances, no autopsy was performed. Her death was quietly classified as accidental. Later, it was revealed that Alex Murdaugh, family patriarch and prominent attorney, had orchestrated a $4.3 million insurance settlement in her name, supposedly for her 2 sons. But the Satterfield family never saw a dime. Alex pocketed the funds, funneling them through secret bank accounts as part of a broader scheme of theft and fraud. 2 deaths, one public and one cloaked in silence, were just the beginning. The story took a chilling turn on the night of June 7, 2021, a night that would ultimately expose the rot festering beneath the Murdaugh name. At the family's sprawling hunting estate in rural Colleton County, South Carolina, Alex Murdaugh made a frantic 911 call, his voice trembling as he claimed to have discovered the lifeless bodies of his wife, Maggie, and his youngest son, Paul. They had been brutally gunned down near the dog kennels. Paul shot with a shotgun, Maggie with a semi-automatic rifle. The use of 2 different firearms immediately raised red flags, hinting at either a coordinated attack or a deeply personal, meticulously planned double homicide. For a family already under the microscope following the high-profile boat crash that killed 19-year-old Mallory Beach and the suspicious 2018 death of longtime housekeeper Gloria Satterfield, the killings of Maggie and Paul sent shockwaves through the Lowcountry and beyond. It was difficult to fathom how a family that had once seemed untouchable could be brought so low, yet this was only the beginning of the unmasking. In the days following the double homicide, investigators descended on the Murdaugh estate, the law firm, and Alex himself. What they would discover in the weeks that followed was nothing short of astonishing. Decades of financial deception began to surface. Secrets Alex had buried deep behind the veil of his powerful legal name. State and federal agencies launched an extensive probe into Alex Murdaugh's finances, and what they unearthed was a sprawling scheme of embezzlement and theft. He had been siphoning millions of dollars from his own law firm, Peters, Murdaugh, Parker, Elsroth and Dietrich, PMPED, as well as defrauding numerous clients, including the sons of Gloria Satterfield. That same year, it was revealed that the money obtained through insurance after her death at the Murdaugh residence had been quietly diverted by Alex. He forged documents, created fraudulent bank accounts, and kept the settlement for himself. Similar schemes were traced across other cases. Clients trusted Alex with their most vulnerable legal matters, wrongful death claims, medical malpractice, inheritance disputes, only to be quietly betrayed. These weren't isolated incidents, but part of a long-running pattern that extended back years. The weight of it all pointed to a man living a double life, the respected attorney by day, the manipulator and thief in private. As investigators dug deeper, the financial pressure closing in, Alex's next move shocked even those who believed they had seen it all. In September 2021, just 3 months after the murders, Alex Murdaugh was shot in the head on the side of a remote highway in Hampton County. News broke quickly. The prominent lawyer had been the victim of a drive-by shooting. But as details emerged, the narrative unraveled. It wasn't a random act of violence. It was a staged suicide-for-hire scheme gone horribly wrong. Alex would later admit to orchestrating the incident himself. He had enlisted the help of a distant cousin and former client, Curtis Eddie Smith, to shoot him in the head so that his surviving son, Buster Murdaugh, could receive a $10 million life insurance payout. The bullet only grazed Alex's head, leaving him with superficial injuries. The lie didn't hold for long. Both Alex and Curtis Smith were arrested, and Alex confessed the bizarre plot in a sworn statement to law enforcement. Alex's trial began on January 25, 2023 at the Colleton County Courthouse in Walterboro, a historic site that would become the backdrop for one of the most publicized murder trials in recent U.S. history. Prosecutor Creighton Waters and veteran trial attorney John Meters led the case for the state. Alex Murdaugh was defended by seasoned lawyers Dick Harpootlian and Jim Griffin. The proceedings were overseen by Judge Clifton Newman, whose rulings would play a critical role in how the drama unfolded. From the outset, the defense tried to prevent the prosecution from referencing Murdaugh's alleged financial crimes, but Judge Newman eventually ruled this testimony admissible. He argued that the jury had the right to consider whether Murdaugh's crumbling financial empire served as a motive for murder. The courtroom was tense and at times chaotic. On February 8th, a bomb threat forced an unexpected evacuation, and on February 13th, 2 jurors had to be replaced after testing positive for COVID-19. Even more bizarrely, Murdaugh was charged with passing contraband in the courtroom on February 24th. The prosecution leaned heavily on technological evidence. A critical moment came when Snapchat confirmed a video posted by Paul just minutes before his death in which Alex's voice could be heard, placing him at the murder scene, contradicting his original alibi. Cell phone geolocation data, car telemetry records, and tower pings built a timeline that poked holes in Murdaugh's story. Prosecutors also played a body cam interview from June 21, 2021, where Murdaugh, overcome with emotion, said, "It's just so bad, I did him so bad." Though the defense disputed the clarity of the words, it left a lingering impact on the jury. Multiple financial witnesses testified, including former clients and colleagues, painting a picture of a man under intense financial pressure. A CEO from a local bank spoke of discovering Murdaugh's theft, while expert witnesses broke down evidence from phones, firearms, and the crime scene. The state rested its case on February 17th. In response, the defense began presenting their side, calling in the Colleton County coroner, who argued that the estimated time of death was imprecise. They also introduced Buster Murdaugh, Alex's surviving son, to paint a more human portrait of the defendant. A crime scene engineer testified that the shooter's likely height did not match Alex's, while blood spatter and forensic experts, some of whom had testified in other high-profile cases, suggested the possibility of 2 shooters and criticized how the crime scene was handled. On February 23rd, Alex Murdaugh took the stand himself. Under oath, he admitted to lying to police, saying he had not been at the kennels when Paul and Maggie were killed. But once the Snapchat video surfaced, he reversed his statement, claiming the lie stemmed from paranoid thinking due to opioid addiction. He also admitted to stealing millions from clients and acknowledged asking his cousin to shoot him in the failed suicide-for-hire scheme. On March 1st, both sides delivered their closing arguments. The next day, the court dismissed a juror for misconduct before handing the case to the remaining panel. After less than 3 hours of deliberation, the jury returned a verdict: guilty on all counts. Judge Newman denied the defense's motion for a mistrial, stating, "The evidence of guilt is overwhelming." On March 3, 2023, Alex Murdaugh was sentenced to 2 consecutive life terms without parole. But the story didn't end there. After his conviction, Murdaugh was moved to Kirkland Correctional Institution, where he underwent evaluation before permanent placement in a maximum security facility. Meanwhile, financial investigations intensified. On May 24th, a federal grand jury indicted him on 22 counts, including wire fraud, bank fraud, and money laundering. He pleaded guilty in November 2023, and by April 1st, 2024, he was sentenced to 40 years in federal prison, along with $8.7 million in restitution, including to Gloria Satterfield's family. Yet, the courtroom drama continued. On September 3, 2023, Murdaugh's lawyers alleged jury tampering by clerk of court Becky Hill, who had published a book on the case. An appeal was filed, and on October 17, the South Carolina Court of Appeals agreed to suspend the conviction and sent it back for review. The South Carolina Supreme Court later reassigned the case to former Justice Jean H. Toll, who denied the motion for a new trial on January 29, 2024. Becky Hill herself was charged on May 14, 2025, with misconduct in office and perjury, further complicating the legacy of the trial. Despite continuing legal wrangling and appeals, Alex Murdaugh now sits behind bars, not just as a murderer, but as the man who dismantled his own empire, from low-country royalty to inmate, brought down by lies, greed, and the brutal slaying of those closest to him. The Murdaugh dynasty didn't fall at the hands of an outsider. It was consumed by its own secrets, murder, betrayal, and corruption running deep. With new lawsuits and reopened investigations, this story may be far from over. If you think this case was crazy, check this one out.